Welcome, everybody. My name is Kelby Henriquez, and I'm one of the student program coordinators here at El Centro. And this is our production in El Centro, a small production by us to interview interesting faculty and staff here at Virginia Tech. Today we have Dr. Vitor Mercadante, an assistant, excuse me, professor and extension specialist here at Virginia Tech. Dr. Mercadante, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome, Kelby. Pleasure to
All right.
talk to you guys.
To start off, my first question to you is: what experiences brought you here to Blacksburg and to work at Virginia Tech?
So I always tell people that before I came here, I really had no idea. I had never heard of Blacksburg. I had heard of Virginia Tech, but not necessarily Blacksburg. And there was a job that came open on the department, and I applied for it. And the first time I went to do the interview, I was just, amazed with the area, right? So super pretty, very different than every other place that I lived, and was very impressed with the university. And I knew some of the faculty that worked in the department, but really didn't know much about Blacksburg. But it was a great job, great opportunity, and I was lucky to have an offer. So it was not planned to be here, I'll tell you that. But it's been great, and I'm very looking back, very happy here. So it's been great.
Well, that's great to hear. Kind of moving on a little forward is so I understand that your research focuses on bovine reproduction physiology, reproductive biotechnologies, as well as embryonic and fetal development and beef cattle management. What led you to go down this path of research?
So I'm originally from Brazil, and my maternal grandfather was a farmer and had cattle. And I grew up in a part of Brazil that had a lot of cattle, beef cattle, and just kind of gravitated towards that area and always wanted to be a veterinarian. I know that's kind of a common thing for a lot of people and tends to be a little cliche sometimes, but I really always wanted to be a veterinarian. So I went through that path, and I knew really early on that I wanted to work with beef cattle, and I really like reproduction. I was, those dumb luck things that we moved when I was 12, and my neighbor then, became good friends, and his father was a veterinarian, and it was the first veterinarian in Brazil that did embryo transfer. So it's just like complete dumb luck, right? And I was, found myself with that passion through beef cattle and veterinary medicine, and through his influence, decided to pursue that. And so I went to vet school in Brazil, worked with beef cattle, and it's kind of specialized on that. Then moved to Florida, went to University of Florida, did grad school in the animal science department, and kind of, slowly really creating this idea of working with research and extension, and working on beef cattle with beef cattle producers. And I was just lucky enough to find a job that will allow me to do that. So it's kind of, it's been a path over the last 30 some years, I guess, with a little bit of luck and developing that passion that started with my grandfather, growing up, going to the farm, and really liking the lifestyle, and liking research later on. And initially it was the idea was just be a clinician, right? Work as a veterinarian in the field. But then through vet school and then later grad school, developed this passion for research, and was really lucky to be able to work with advisors during vet school and grad school. There were great researchers that did applied type research, which that's kind of what I like. I really like to make that bridge between the basic science, things that people are developing in the lab, and how can we apply that on the farm and create strategies and technologies that a beef producer can start using tomorrow, right? So that's the kind of research that we do, is that translational research, right? So take things from the lab and apply into the field, and really learn to like that kind of research, and you start pursuing that. And then the job that I do is a 70% research, 30% extension appointment. And the job description when they advertise was really focused on this. Somebody that can work with the producers in the state, and have a research program that is very applicable, right? So kind of fit really well with my goals, and I guess that's why I got the job.
Interesting. You stand in a very like interesting position, having the connection with the lab and research as well as the cattlemen and providing
Yeah,
them that insight. That's wonderful. As I understand it, that you are part of the Beef Reproduction Task Force,
yeah.
which focuses on spreading information about reproductive management and focusing on collaborative research for beef, cow, calf producers. What has your time on the Beef Production Task Force been like?
So just some background. This group of people, it's been around. I want to say at least 17 years now. It's been around for a while, and it came about because of the need of having people with the same interests in sharing information with producers, right? There's a lot of information out there, but the idea of the group came together to then offer a place where a beef producer that's looking for information on reproduction specifically can find a very reliable source of information, right? So the group came together, and among other things, there's an annual meeting that last year was online, of course, but and then we have a new website that provides a lot of information on that subject. It's been great. It's really kind of one of the highlights of my career, to be honest. It's a very well respected group, historically, very special and talented researchers that do that job very well, like that translational job, right? Again,
Mhm.
talking about that very applicable type of research. So it's a voted, like you're voted in. So it was really awesome to be part of it. So I joined in 2019, and it's a 4-year commitment. So it's been great, and it's really nice. There's 8 of us, so there's people from across the country. They're all faculty and extension members. So there's somebody from Texas A&M, 2 people from Texas A&M, Kansas State University, University of Idaho, New Mexico State, forgetting, University of Missouri, University of Georgia, and Virginia Tech. So, it's very broad, it's spread throughout the country, and it's been a great experience to work with different people and really have helped me reach more producers. So just an example, last year with our online meeting, we had over 4,000 registrants in 31 countries. So it was awesome. We were really surprised with how well um, the meeting went. So it's not only, it's becoming an international organization as well, which is pretty cool. And, have people from South America, people from Africa, Europe, Australia, and Asia, which was crazy, right? If you think about like across the world, and people were watching the seminars, live, even with the time change. So it's pretty cool. It's a great group. We really focus on providing research-based information, right? So which is really important as well to producers. So I'm very honored to be part of it. And yeah, if you guys could probably like put the website underneath somewhere, I can share more information. But yeah, it's a great group.
You can absolutely do that. That sounds like a wonderful experience that you're going through, especially considering the where you stand in research as well as what their focus is, having the connection between the researchers as well as the
Yeah.
cattlemen and all. That sounds wonderful. Um, so going along the lines of your research specifically, what's a piece of information that you would like our viewers to know about your research or the beef industry in general?
Um, like I think lately, the beef industry has been really getting a bad name, right? Like you have this idea of that we're destroying the world, and the methane that the cattle produces is worse than a car, right? For climate change, and that's not always true, right? There's a lot of misinformation there, and I think it's important for people to understand that as an industry, the beef industry has really done a tremendous job on improving not only productivity, right, but animal welfare and the impact, that the environmental impact of beef production. So we don't always get the good name, but if you really look at the true data, uh, beef production has been a tremendous made tremendous improvements on that aspect. So, and we don't always get to tell that story, right? Just to put things in perspective. I'm from Brazil. Like Brazil has the largest commercial beef cattle herd in the world. There's 220 million head of cattle, which is amazing, right? The U.S. is the second largest herd. It has 94 or 95 million head of cattle, but the U.S. produces more beef per year than Brazil, with less than half of the cows, right? So if you think about that, that's amazing, right? That's how we achieve efficiency, right? Producing more with less, which also reduces impact. So it's pretty awesome to be part of an industry that really focuses on reducing the impact and producing food that's available and has it's accessible for people, right, across the world. So we don't always get to tell a story, but it's nice to have that opportunity. There are ways, there's definitely ways where we can improve, and in a way, that's what I do, right? How can we improve not only the life of the animal, the life of the producer, and deliver a product that's safer and more accessible to the consumer. So if I can tell one thing about my research, is that's kind of what we do. It's try to help producers be more efficient and have less impact while producing beef. And we do that primarily by trying to understand how cows get pregnant, right? So what's the difference? Well, why one cow get pregnant, the other doesn't? What's the difference between those two cows, and what are technologies that we can use to understand those differences and also correct those differences so that we can make sure the cows get pregnant every year. The other cool thing too that we don't really, most people don't realize, but a lot of the technologies that we ended up developing in the animal science world and the veterinary medicine world are applicable to humans, which is pretty cool. A lot of people don't know this, but if you go to an IVF clinics for humans, a lot of those technicians and IVF clinic directors are animal scientists or are veterinarians. And they're not the ones that deal with the client because that's a human, that's going to be a medical doctor. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of animal scientists there. And the technology for IVF, for in vitro fertilization, and for embryo transfer was originally created on animals, right? So it's pretty cool. So in a way, some of the things that we do can also directly affect the life of parents, right? People, infertility is kind of a big deal. It's being affecting a lot of couples, right? Trying to get pregnant. And so some of the technologies we do can help them achieve that as well. So that's something that's pretty cool.
What you said earlier about being able to produce more with less, something interesting. I think people will find a lot of value in that and be able to appreciate the research that you do, as well as understanding that background with the connection of animals to humans. I think not enough people understand how important that connection is and how intertwined animals are in our lives.
Yeah.
So thank you for that insight.
Yeah, there's a new concept. It's not very new, but people are talking more about like this One Health concept, right? Which is really we humans, the animals, our pets, the agriculture, everything is connected, right? So it's really this idea of One Health, and if one of the links is not healthy, like it affects the whole system, right? So we are more interconnected than we believe.
Right. So the whole, you're only as strong as the weakest link. The entire environment and ecosystems are all related in that way. Where if one falls apart, it's kind of dangerous for the rest of us as well.
Exactly.
Wonderful. All right. So besides being an assistant professor and extension specialist here, you were also an affiliate assistant professor at the Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine, working with the large animal clinical sciences. Can you give us some insight about your experience working there?
Yeah. So my initial appointment here at Virginia Tech was only in the animal and poultry science department. But pretty early on, I had some collaborators at the vet school that reached out to me, and we started working together. And really, like on my first semester, which was spring of 2016, We did several projects together with some professors at the Production, Medicine, and Management Services, the PMM services inside the Large Animal Clinical Sciences. And that has been a very productive collaboration. So since then, pretty much every semester we have collaborations and research projects. So I started spending a lot of time there, and it kind of just organically made sense. So I joined as an affiliate professor, and then in 2019, more officially now, I spend about 30% of my time at PMM. So working primarily with their largest client, which is the Virginia Department of Corrections. So the prison system in Virginia, they're the largest cattle owner in the state. So they own about 2,500 head of cattle. And again, like the largest clients for the vet school. So together with Dr. John Curry, Dr. Sherry Clark, and Dr. Jamie Stewart at the vet school, we provide all the veterinarian and animal health care um, for the prison herds. So, and again, that takes about 30% of my time. So early in the spring, so around this time, we do a lot of farm visits, and then later in the fall as well. And it's a really cool partnership between the vet school and the Virginia Department of Corrections, because we use those animals for research and for teaching, right? So every time we go, we take students with us, and for a veterinary student that really has an interest on beef cattle production, it's quite the opportunity to really go out there to large operations. There, those are real life farmers, right? And ranches that produce beef cattle. So it's a quite unique opportunity to see how things work in the real world, if you will. So it's a great opportunity for us and for research as well. It provided us, um, you know, a larger sample size, if you will, right? So some of the studies that we do, it is important to have different locations and a large number of animals, and it's been a perfect place to do a lot of the type of research that we do with fertility, for example. So yeah, it's been great, and again, it's one of those other things that sometimes takes people by surprise. But we go to prison quite a bit. I think I've been to almost every prison in the state, which is kind of cool. And we work with the inmates. So the inmates will work cattle with us and provide them an opportunity to learn a different trade as well, which is important. And we had opportunity to do some artificial insemination schools for the inmates so that they can learn a trade and perhaps work on the industry once they're released. So
I would say that is something very amazing to have that connection with the research as well as like state government. I never would have imagined that those
yeah,
two could have ever come together and collaborate in such a way.
yeah.
That's incredible. That's a wonderful opportunity for those inmates. Um, so going back to a more personal note, I understand that you had studied at Sao Paulo State University and University of Florida. So what is just one thing that you missed from your college years?
Oh man, those are the great years of my life, right? It's pretty cool. That's where I met my wife too. So we met in vet school. And yeah, college is really an amazing time if you think about it. Yeah, there's a lot of responsibilities, but you still don't have a lot of other responsibilities. And once you get out, you start realizing that it's like, oh crap. You start really starting to have some pay some bills and do some other things. But yeah, I really miss. I think the biggest thing that I miss from my college times uh, is just the friends. I made really strong connections, both professionally and personally. That some of my best friends still are from that time, and it's really the other thing that's really cool is that a lot of the people that I worked uh, during vet school, either as colleagues, both as undergrads, and um, are people that I work with now, right? People that have faculty appointments, people that work for companies that fund our research. So those connections, they really go. Sometimes you don't realize, but that friend that you had in vet school is the person that you're submitting grants with, you're publishing with, and they're sending their students to your lab and vice versa. So it's pretty cool to look back and say like, man, the guy that one of my roommates now, it's a faculty at UC Davis, and we work together. And it's been amazing to be able to work with friends that I made so long ago. So that's really one of the things that I miss the most, is just the ability to make all those connections back then without even realizing that they would follow me through all my life. So it's been, for sure.
That sounds great. That sounds something like along the lines of like people want to expect exactly where like life takes them and how things play out, especially having like you said, you're just this person's roommate, and then you move on to doing such professional serious things like submitting grants and all that. I think
Yeah.
that's something that many of our viewers can either relate to or begin to understand that as part of the college experience. Um, Continuing on with the more personal side of things, what has been your biggest challenge as a Latino here in the New River Valley?
Um, I was you sent those questions earlier, right? Which is nice. And I was thinking about that, and in a way, being very lucky because I'm very aware of other stories and other people that have really struggled with racism and other issues, and I've been really lucky since I moved to the US to really not encounter that, at least so clearly. Uh, when we moved to Florida, it's kind of an easy move because it's a big Latino community and there's a lot of Brazilians. It's crazy. Um, when we were in grad school, the majority of the grad students in the animal science department at UF were Brazilians. So, for us, it was just kind of this big community. And when I first moved here, that wasn't in place. And for a while, when you kind of miss it, right? It's nice. We have a lot of American friends and Korean friends and other people from other countries, but it's always nice to have people from your home country, right, where you can share some cultural things and have commemorate some important dates and those kind of things. And when we first moved here, that wasn't the case. But then over the past 4 years or so, we definitely created that community. And there's a big Brazilian presence at the Volvo plant, the truck plant in Redford. There's a lot of Brazilians there. When we made friends with several of them. So we created that community. So I guess my answer would be that early on, that lack of Brazilian community, which we missed, but we have that now in place. But again, it's probably like a boring answer compared to some other people that I know really have struggled in the past. But again, I guess being very lucky to not have encountered those kinds of situations.
Mhm. First, I think your experience does have some value in it, wherein that not every experience has to be one that's difficult and challenging, but something that
Yeah,
people can appreciate that even though you come into a different place, that there can always be a community that you find. I think
yeah,
that's
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
We're very lucky, like this area of the country, and because of the university, I believe there's just exposure to different cultures and people are more accepting, I guess, than other places. So we tend to be insulated by a big international community, which is it's really nice and has a big value, right? So like having kids now and having them interact with other kids that come from different backgrounds too, and they just grow up learning that that's normal and that's a great thing and that's how it should be, right?
mhm. The perceptions do have like a nice view on them. Um, Personally, I am going on to the next question. I am studying animal and poultry science here at Tech, and I am on the pre-vet track. And I'm sure there are other viewers may want some advice on this, but what are some tips or advice that you can give to upcoming veterinary students or students that are leaving that once they leave undergraduate school?
um what I So as part of my job, I work with undergrads too, right? I advise some undergrads, and what I always tell people is that there's nothing wrong with being a veterinarian, right? Like we all understand how difficult it is to get accepted, and I think anybody that's applying understands that. Uh, so if this is really what you want to do, just go for it. But I think it's really important that you understand veterinary medicine before you even apply. And that, idea that you're going to love the animals, and that's all great, but on a day-to-day job, you need more than just loving the animals, right? You need to love medicine, you need to love physiology, pharmacology, and anatomy, and all those kinds of things. So, and you need to understand what the job really is, right? So go do some internships, go work with veterinarians, right? Find someone that has the job you think you want to have, and go spend a month with them to really see if what they're doing is what we want to do for the rest of your life. You know, volunteering on a vet clinic, it's great. I think it's a first step, but you need to go beyond, right? You need to
Mhm.
talk to people that are in vet school. We are aware that unfortunately we have one of the highest rates of suicide among the profession. So it can be really tough too, and I don't think we a lot of people understand how tough it can be, right?
Mhm.
So doing a lot of research, spending time talking to people, and really getting exposed to the profession early on, I think it's very important. It will help you through the interview process once you're trying to get in. It will build your CV, but more importantly, it really helps you make sure that you're making the right decision, right? Because it's a big time commitment, big financial commitment. And again, there's nothing wrong with being a veterinarian, right? But you need to know what you were getting into. That's with any profession, right? But here, especially, like if you think about med school, law school, those more specialized type professions, because of the time commitment and the financial commitment, I think it's really important that we understand what we're doing. So
I appreciate that. I think that's one of the main things that students need to understand, that it's not just a degree that you're getting, but you're also going into whatever profession is something that you want to have some insight in. I also appreciate what you said about the suicide rates. I had read a
yeah,
statistic that said around their veterinarians are 2 times as likely to commit suicide as their human counterparts, as
yeah,
well as they're experiencing about 10 times as much death in the profession due to euthanasias and other such things. So I think having an understanding that it can be an emotional roller coaster for sure is something
yeah,
important for students to understand. I myself have worked in veterinary clinics, and I can for sure say that your advice works. If you go in and find what you want to work for, understand what those veterinarians are doing and why, it gives you a greater understanding of what the profession is and what it entails.
exactly.
Um, so that's all the questions I have for you today. I really do appreciate your time. I wanted to mention really quick that the Beef Reproduction Task Force does have a YouTube channel, and there is a hour-long webinar that Dr. Mercadante was a part of. So if you all want to check that out, head over to YouTube, Beef Reproduction Task Force.
Yeah,
All right. Dr. Mercadante, thank you so much for your time.
yeah. Thank you, Kelby. Appreciate it.